Today we are going to recapitulate the chapter Indigo written by Louis Fisher from the book Flamingo of CBSE. So here we go. Let us first know the content of the video. First, I'll tell you a few things about the author Louis Fisher. Then we will know the theme of the chapter. I will summarize the whole story for you. We will understand the problem of sharecroppers. We will know a few things about Rajkumar Shukla, the catalyst of Champaran movement. We will then understand why Gandhi is called a true leader and what social reforms he did at Champaran. And finally, we will elucidate the statement self-reliance, Indian independence and help to sharecroppers were all woven together by Gandhi. Now, let's move ahead. Louis Fisher was born in Philadelphia. He served as a volunteer in the British Army between 1918 and 1920. Fisher made a career as a journalist and wrote for the New York Times, the Saturday Review, and for European and Asian publications. He was also a member of the faculty at Princeton University. The following is an excerpt from his book, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. The book has been reviewed as one of the best books ever written on Gandhi by Times Educational Supplement. The chapter Indigo emphasizes the fact that an effective leadership can solve any kind of problem without any harm to anybody. This chapter deals with the way Mahatma Gandhi solved the problem of poor sharecroppers of Champaran in a non-violent way. Indigo details numerous events in the life of Gandhi which he witnessed in Champaran, Bihar. It was in 1916 that Gandhi was approached by a peasant, Rajkumar Shukla, from Champaran. He wanted Gandhi to visit Champaran and do something for the condition of peasants there. Due to his persistent efforts, he was successful in bringing Gandhi to Champaran after a few months. On the way to Champaran from Calcutta, Gandhi, in order to understand the problem of sharecroppers, decided to meet a lawyer, Rajendra Prasad, in Patna and Professor J.P. Kriplani at Muzaffarpur. By the time Gandhi reached Champaran, the news of his mission had spread like wildfire. After reaching Champaran, Gandhi learnt that arable areas were divided into large estates, owned by the Englishmen and worked by the peasants. Indigo was the main commercial crop of the area as the landlords forced all the tenants to grow indigo on 15% of their land and surrender the entire crop as rent. When the landlords learnt that synthetic indigo had been developed by the Germans, they asked the tenants to pay them compensation for releasing them from 15% arrangement that they had signed. This brought misery to the peasants and they wanted Gandhi to help them. While going to investigate the maltreatment of a peasant in a village near Motihari, Gandhi was ordered to return midway and was served a summons to report to the court the following morning. The peasants came in huge numbers outside the court to support Gandhi and the officials were unable to control the crowd. As a result, the trial was postponed and so allowed Gandhi to move around freely. All the prominent lawyers, including Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, Maulana Mazharul Haq, arrived in Champaran to support Gandhi and decided to go to jail with Gandhi if he was sent to jail. But Gandhi received a written communication that the governor had dropped the case. This was the beginning of the triumph of civil disobedience in India. Gandhi, along with a team of lawyers, continued his investigation and met the governor 4 times. Finally, an official inquiry was ordered. Gandhi accepted 25% of the money offered to the farmers as refund. This instilled courage among the farmers and marked their victory over injustice and exploitation. After this, Gandhi worked for the economic and cultural development of the area. With the help of Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, their wives, his own wife and son, Gandhi opened schools and taught cleanliness and sanitation. Gandhi taught a lesson of self-reliance to his followers by refusing the idea of keeping Charles Andrews in India to help him. As per Gandhi, it was a sign of weakness to seek the help of an Englishman to bolster their efforts. Thus, Champaran became a symbol of self-reliance and Indian independence. Let us try to understand the problem of sharecroppers. Most of the arable land in the Champaran district was divided into large estates owned by Englishmen and worked by Indian tenants. The chief commercial crop was indigo. The landlords compelled all tenants to plant 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. This was done by long-term contract. The landlords learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. They thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. The sharecropping arrangement was irksome to the peasants and many signed. Those who resisted engaged lawyers. The landlords hired thugs. Meanwhile, the information about synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasants who had signed, and they wanted their money back. Rajkumar Shukla was a poor, illiterate peasant from Champaran. When he came to know that Gandhi was in Lucknow, he decided to meet him and ask him to help the poor sharecroppers of Champaran. He requested Gandhi to come to Champaran, but Gandhi was not free. He had appointments in Kanpur and in other parts of India. Shukla followed him everywhere and even to his ashram at Ahmedabad and urged him to fix a date. Finally, Gandhi had to agree to visit Champaran. This clearly shows that Shukla was resolute. Gandhi was indeed impressed by his tenacity, determination, and persistence. We can say that it was Rajkumar Shukla who acted as a catalyst in the historical Champaran movement. Gandhi was indeed the leader of the masses. Let us now understand how he made the Champaran movement a success. Gandhi undertook the visit to Champaran on the insistence of Rajkumar Shukla, a sharecropper peasant. On reaching Muzaffarpur, he obtained complete information about the condition prevailing there. He met the lawyers who acquainted him with the situation and the sharecropping arrangement. When Gandhi arrived in Champaran, he found that the grievances of the peasants were really of a serious nature. He collected all the facts and met the commissioner, but he was advised to leave Champaran. Gandhi concluded that the root cause of the problem was fear. So going to law courts to solve the dispute was useless. It brought him face to face with reality, and he became aware of the miserable condition of the poor illiterate farmers. He also realized the exploitation that lay beneath the policies of the Britishers. Gandhi chided the lawyers for collecting big fee from the sharecroppers. After his chiding, the lawyers realized that it was shameful for them not to help peasants, as Gandhi, being a stranger, was ready even to go to jail for the peasants. The spontaneous demonstration by the peasants was the beginning of their liberation from fear of the British. Civil disobedience had triumphed for the first time in modern India. The Lieutenant Governor had to drop the case against Gandhi after realizing the support of the masses that he had. When Gandhi arrived in the court in response to the summons he was served, the town of Motihari was filled with large crowds. The British officials felt helpless and had to take Gandhi's help to control the mob. Fearing the consequences, the case was postponed and later dropped. A committee was formed after Gandhi met the Lieutenant Governor 4 times. Gandhi accepted 25% refund of the money to break the deadlock. This instilled confidence in farmers, and within a few years the landlords relinquished their claims over the estates. Gandhi never contented himself with large political or economic solutions. He saw the cultural and social backwardness in the Champaran villages and wanted to do something about it immediately. He appealed for teachers, Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, 2 young men who had just joined Gandhi as disciples, and their wives volunteered for the work. Several more came from Bombay, Pune and other distant parts of the land. Devdas, Gandhi's youngest son, arrived from the ashram, and so did Mrs. Gandhi. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages. Kasturbai taught the ashram rules on personal cleanliness and community sanitation. Health conditions were miserable. Gandhi got a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months. Only 3 medicines were available: castor oil, quinine and sulfur ointment. Gandhi noticed the filthy state of women's clothes. He asked Kasturbai to talk to them about it. During his long stay in Champaran, Gandhi kept a long-distance watch on the ashram. He sent regular instructions by mail and asked for financial accounts. Thus, he uplifted the Champaran village in every field. Let us now elucidate the statement given by the author: self-reliance, Indian independence and help to sharecroppers were all bound together. Gandhi was a complete leader. During his stay in Champaran, he worked on the upliftment of the peasants at multiple levels. He came to know that the arable areas of Champaran were divided into large estates owned by British landlords. If the peasants wanted to move out of the arrangement of growing indigo crops and giving off the earning to the landlords, they were supposed to pay a compensation amount. This was cheating and unjustified. However, Gandhi realized that the root cause of the problem was the fear and no unity among the peasants. He worked to treat the main problem. He united the lawyers and the poor peasants. He converted the individual struggle to a mass movement. Civil disobedience won for the first time in India in Champaran under the leadership of Gandhi. The fight of the peasants became the springboard to the larger fight for Indian independence. Gandhi taught the lesson of courage to poor Indians and also to Britishers that they cannot behave as lords above law. Gandhi also worked to improve the social and cultural backwardness in Champaran. Work was done to improve schools and health condition. Lessons were taught on personal cleanliness. He refused to take help from Andrews as he felt that taking help from an Englishman will increase their dependency. He wanted Indians to be self-reliant. Rajendra Prasad rightly said, Gandhi in this way taught us a lesson in self-reliance. Thus we can say that Gandhi was a complete leader. Well, that's all. I hope it helped you to revise the chapter. Thank you so much. Happy reading.